GDP is broken.
With the latest economic growth projections from the European
GDP data this morning. Final
new GDP numbers show the economy is growing at a low.
GDP growth estimate for the financial
today.
year.
U.S. gross domestic product increase.
And GDP now is around 84.
For GDP numbers in the U.S. economy. And to your point, they are much.
GDP? What the does that mean? Let's Google it. Gross domestic product is the total monetary value of all final goods and services. Okay. That's a bit confusing. Good thing I'm here. Okay, let's try to simplify it. Imagine at the end of the year, we collected every single receipt from every cash register, every digital invoice, and every paycheck in the country. We pile them all up and check the total at the bottom. That's your GDP, the total value of everything we made and did for money. Was that clear? No? Okay, let me simplify things before my brain starts smoking. Let's imagine a small island with only 3 people. A farmer, a baker, and a cleaning lady. In 1 year, the farmer sells vegetables worth $1,000. The baker sells bread worth $2,000. And the cleaning lady makes $1,500. So, what is the GDP of this island? Simply put, GDP equals 1,000 plus 2,000 plus 1,500 equals $4,500. That's it. No magic, just total production. So, GDP counts both goods and services. Goods are things you can touch and buy, like cars, phones, and food. Services are things people do for you, like haircuts, teaching, or medical care. But GDP does not include housework you do for free, volunteering, black market activities, or transaction not declared. For example, in our little island, if the farmer grows vegetables just for his family, it doesn't count because no money changes hands. If the baker volunteers to bake bread for free, it doesn't count because it's an unpaid service. And if the cleaning lady cleans her own house, it doesn't count either because it's housework done for herself, not for pay. So remember, GDP only counts paid goods and services, not the stuff people do for free. Now you might think, so we just add up all the sales, right? Well, not exactly. There's more to it. We also need to include investments, imports and exports, and government spending. And that's when we bring in the famous GDP formula. GDP equals C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Let me translate this into normal language. C is for consumption. This is what households spend every day. Food, clothes, phones, rent, Netflix subscriptions. Basically, it's all your daily spending. I is for investment. And no, this isn't just stocks or crypto. Investment means money spent to produce more in the future, like factories, machines, offices, technology, new buildings. G is for government spending. Basically, this is all the money the government uses to keep the country running. Schools, hospitals, roads, the police, even public salaries. All of that counts as government spending. Finally, X minus M stands for exports minus import. Exports are all the stuff your country sells to other countries. Imports are all the stuff your country buys from other countries. So GDP is basically spending by people plus businesses plus government plus trade with the world. Easy, right? That's cool. But why should you care? You might be thinking, why does the national receipt matter to me? It matters because GDP is the ultimate vibe check for the job market. When GDP is growing at 3%, businesses feel confident. They hire, they give raises. When you graduate, you'll have job offers. When GDP shrinks, businesses panic. They freeze hiring. That entry-level job suddenly requires 5 years of experience. GDP is the difference between an economy that feels like a party and one that feels like a waiting room. But when we say GDP is growing, is it really because the economy is producing more stuff? Or is it just because prices are going up? Let's say last year you sold 10 apples at $1, that's $10. This year, you sell the same 10 apples at $2, that's $20. Did the economy really grow? No, prices grew, not production. That's why economists use real GDP, which removes inflation. So here's the deal. Nominal GDP is calculated using current prices, and the real GDP is adjusted for inflation. Let's take Argentina as an example. In 2023, Argentina's nominal GDP was about $640 billion. In 2024, nominal GDP increased to about $680 billion. So on paper, Argentina's GDP went up. but inflation in Argentina was over 200% in 2024. When we adjust for inflation, the real GDP of Argentina actually fell by about 2 to 3%. It's important here to clarify that a big economy isn't always a rich economy. To be more clear, let's take the same example. In 2024, Argentina's total GDP was about $680 billion, and Argentina has about 46 million people. So when we divide $680 billion by 46 million people, we get about $14,800 per person. This is Argentina's GDP per capita. Now, let's compare this with Germany. In 2024, Germany's total GDP was about $4.6 trillion, and Germany has about 84 million people. So when we divide $4.6 trillion by 84 million people, that's about $54,700 per person. That is Germany's GDP per capita. Total GDP tells us how big the economy is, but the GDP per capita tells us how rich the average person is. Argentina and Germany both have big economies, but Germany's people produce much more per person than Argentina's. So always look at GDP per capita, not just total GDP when you want to compare living standards. At this point, you must know that GDP measures how much a country produces and sells, not how good life is for people. I'm Kaezir, and this is Kaezir Economics. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, and tell me in the comments, what economic topic should we break down next?